guys to another episode of Shades of Reality. On today's show, I have Scott Kirby, who is the founder of Raised and a strategic business advisor. Raised is a platform that is committed to giving access to the same opportunities to everyone in early stage economy. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah.
How are you today?
I'm very well. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. A bit tired. I'm all right.
we're all tired.
I'm a bit tired this morning, but I'm all right.
Yeah, no, it's great, isn't it? Like, thank you for having us, obviously, firstly.
Thank you for coming. How was your journey?
Yeah, nice and easy. Nice hour. One of my shorter commutes of the week, so I don't mind.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, Scott, tell us a bit about Raised and what the kind of ethos is behind it.
Yeah, so I approach it really, really simply. So Raised is a business where we really focus about kind of give everyone in the early stage ecosystem access to the same opportunities. So much of like raising capital and raising money in the early stage world for startups is really driven on your network and who you know, and not necessarily what you know. And obviously I sit here as a white man, probably in a privileged situation because most investors look like me. And that's one of the things that is an unfair advantage in some scenarios. But what we can really do is use that as an opportunity to create a much better, more efficient way to structure and give more people access to money in the early stage world, because only 1% of businesses manage to raise capital at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's on average overall. If you were to break those stats down and look at it, if I was a woman or if I was from a disadvantaged background or any other kind of social demographic, those stats would be wildly different.
Definitely.
So that leaves us something where there's a huge opportunity to improve on and make it so that the fundamental principle should be that the best idea wins, not necessarily who you know.
Or what you look like.
Exactly.
Well, or your beliefs. There's a lot of, yeah.
It should really be about true equity of everyone having the same opportunity at the beginning of the early stage of kind of decision making. It should really be as simple as everyone looks the same on paper. And then what happens after that point you can't control, but at least at that early stage, every business looks the same.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. How long have you been working in the corporate world?
So if I went back to my early stage career, so I've been an accountant probably for 20 odd years, coming up for 20 years. So that started in a tiny little provincial practice down on the south coast, and then I kind of made my transition to the corporate world and worked for a large travel group maybe about 15 to 20 years ago. Whereas you would think it's really, really strange of getting into that environment of, I didn't go to university, I kind of came from a traditional kind of accounting firm, not one of the big four, and yet I was surrounded by everyone who had done that and was kind of in some cases like an outlier in that sense.
Yeah.
But it was a great opportunity. And it's kind of shaped a lot of my kind of development over the rest of my career.
How challenging was that for you, navigating in the corporate world, coming from your background and mixing with others from various backgrounds?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes you struggle with the politics. Like corporate world is very political. You're looking at overall like a much more convoluted way of making a decision. You have to go through processes of multiple different people to sign things off, whereas my own background and kind of the way we do most things is you can go straight to the person who makes a decision, you move on with it.
Yeah.
And then when you get that everyone else comes from that background of, oh, I worked for, and almost this perception of elitism, and then you kind of look at yourself and go, well, I don't need to be like that. And I'm probably still one of the better people here. Mm-hmm. From a self-confidence perspective. You have to take a step back sometime and go, oh, just because I didn't go to that university or I didn't work for that company doesn't mean anything of what I'm doing is less relevant.
Self-belief, it's very important, 100%. Isn't it? I think self-awareness as well. Obviously, we've all been there where, I think, imposter syndrome, have you heard of that?
Oh,
that has happened with all of us, I think, well, especially me. And I think it depends on the environment you're from as well, and what people install in you, and what the limitations people put on you, and what you allow, because you can't just blame others. You've allowed that, and then when you realise you've allowed that, and you're kind of thinking, hold on, you need to really believe in yourself, though. I think
100%.
It's not about anyone. You need to believe in yourself, and that shines, don't you think?
Oh, it's so true, because I think that you go back to your own kind of settings, and like everyone when they first start out, or a lot of people, if they're driven and they're motivated and they want to go on a career journey and really commit to the career, everyone chases that next title.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of that first time you become a director or in that responsibility where you manage a team, everyone just kind of assumes that you get the extra pay and you get the title and you don't do anything extra. Whereas the real reality is you have to kind of take a step back and go, I've now got obligations to more people than what I had before, and it's not just about yourself. It's about how can you help and support other people.
True leadership.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between, don't you think there's a difference between leaderships? Would you say director is a leader in a way? Or because there's managers aren't leaders, are they? I used to be a manager and I was trying to lead, but it wasn't working because I was a manager. I was good, it was all right, but naturally I wanted to lead, so it wasn't.
Yeah, I think it really does depend on the environment of where you fit in an organisation and how much autonomy you've got.
Yeah.
Because it's quite easy that I sit here at a startup and I'm in complete control of what we're doing and I'm bringing my own people together to kind of achieve a mission. I've got complete autonomy to go, this is what we're doing and how we're doing it.
It's your business,
whereas you go into the more traditional work world of where you're part of a bigger business.
Corporation,
And that may be a very dictatorial kind of autocratic organisation where they go, your whole thing is you must do this. Mm-hmm. And all we care about is the output.
Yeah.
So in terms of the results of the team and all that sort, and that's all they care about.
It looks good on paper, and it doesn't matter about the well-being.
Whereas you've got other people who go we need to solve this problem. How you get there and your team get there is your kind of responsibility, and you can own that part of the process. Mm. That's very different to going, you've got a target to hit and you must do it by this point in time.
Interesting.
So there's a huge opportunity there, really, around how you shape what you do. Yeah. In that environment.
Yeah, definitely.
But that setting and the values and culture of that organisation very much dictate what that looks like.
I agree. Culture is so important. I speak about it all the time. I can't stop speaking about it. Yeah, culture. Don't you think that dictates to the organisation how it runs?
Yeah, like culture and brand kind of come back to being the same thing, don't they? It's very much like the outward perception of what a business is or what an organisation looks like versus the internal reality is culture.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and it's that thing of everyone goes, we want to have a really great culture, we want to be like this, but behind the scenes it's, no, you must do this, you must do that, which are conflicting ideologies. Yeah. So when we kind of look at things, it's about, I'm very much a really simple person of, I'll say what I believe, and that tries to stem through everything we do and what I'm involved in.
It's that simple, yeah.
It really is.
Values, do you think comes from a place of values?
Yeah, I think because everyone kind of comes back to those background beliefs of what do you stand for?
Yeah.
And it's trying to blend your own moral background with the values of an organisation you work for. And if you look at all the stats in terms of those people who go and work for companies and they stay long term, it's very much because their values are aligned. Mm-hmm. Either that or there's a complete dependency of where that other person doesn't have opportunity to go elsewhere, and it's very much you're in a set environment where you have to have that job because that's all you can do, and you're in that position of where you're vulnerable because that's the only opportunity you've got.
Or what you think you've got.
Because the organisation...
because the limits that you have on yourself and the organisation, it's all oppression coming from different
100%.
Places, isn't it? And then you start kind of, It's quite sad. You mentioned something earlier about them being like the white middle class and them having access to most things. Would you say there's still a big gap when it comes to finances and funding then? Would you say 20 years ago?
I think if you look at the data, everything will tell you that the most privileged position in society is a white middle class man of a certain age, because that's very much the identity of where most capital goes to, where most relationships come from, and that kind of scenario of where that is an incredibly privileged position, and like people take that for granted. But more importantly, we're in a society where there is more and more now of a drive to provide equity and more equality, and you've got different approaches to how you do that with those people who want to go, I'm going to go out and I'm just going to focus on women and protecting women's rights and standing up for women, which is a completely great way to go about it, don't get me wrong, but part of the problem in that approach is you're then alienating the very audience you're trying to engage with.
100%.
Because one thing that's not going to change in the short-term future is the majority of investors are going to be white men, just because of where we are in society at this point in time. Like,
do you think that's in the future as well?
I think if we do the right things right and we create
Now.
more successful organisations that are more equitable, then naturally you will see that change over a period of time.
Definitely.
But there's no way we're suddenly going to rebalance the economy and suddenly wealth's going to transfer from everyone. And like
you're not just going to go, here, have the wealth, this give handed over.
Yeah.
No,
so
no.
so I think it's that thing of, again, coming back to, as much as we can all align on where we want to be, the reality is not going to change in the short term.
No.
It's really about from a generational perspective, looking forwards.
It's about that though, preparing for that generation. Like what we do today is the steps for the future, kind of thing. So it's so important. That's why I believe in setting that foundation now. And it's not about, I think a lot of people think about themselves and their families now, and it's like, what about, you got to think about the present, but you've got to think about what you're leaving for others.
Yeah, 100%.
People you don't even know, just make a difference to people. Like, it's not just about you and your. I'm just a universal person. I always have been. I think I want to reach as much people as I can, because I think it's important. Oh. I think so many people can relate to so many people, but they just can't. They're not in contact with them, and you can save a lot of lives and help a lot of people. By expanding.
And I think that point is so true, coming back to like the early stage economy, of where there's lots of people that have been privileged and have been successful, and their first kind of interaction after that point is they look to engage with people, and they very much look at it from a parasitic perspective of, here's a fresh meat that I can kind of, they don't know what they don't know, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a percentage of their company and I'm going to charge them for doing all this stuff they don't know they don't need really, but they've never been in that environment to know that's not normal.
People exploiting vulnerabilities.
It's that thing, isn't it? You think about, there's so many examples of people that have had great ideas,
and they've just
they introduce it to someone, and then someone will go off and go, oh yeah, I'm going to do that now on my own,
and act like it was my idea. Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that we're trying to help in the most like kind of simple way aren't the people that have access to a really high profile lawyer who's been there and done it, or knows what you should share and what you shouldn't share, or how you structure a relationship so it makes sure it protects both parties. Because usually most people in the startup world don't have capital. It's either they've got a job and they're trying to step away from doing a job to focus on their own business, or they've been very lucky and they've got savings, or they've got investment from family and friends that can help them get started. And those people, everyone looks at as kind of like vulnerable prey to a certain degree, as going, oh, what can I sell to them and what will they buy? Without really thinking about how they can support them on their journey.
Now I can so relate. It's just like, if you can see someone's good, why not try and help them be better, and then you all can enjoy it instead of wanting to like. It's really, I don't get that way of thinking.
But it's very much a short-sighted mentality.
It's short-sighted.
People who say they want to help, when in reality it's about how can you extract.
Yeah.
Really simple, like how can I extract rather than impacting on someone's life.
Yeah.
So I can sit down and go, do you know what, I'm going to spend some time with you and I'm going to charge you $2,000 a day for doing that. Yeah. Versus I'm going to sit down with you and say, how can I help you? Mm-hmm. Like money shouldn't come in, like most early stage meetings shouldn't come into money.
Well, no, but it shouldn't. but you know, everyone does their thing differently, don't they? And success is different in different kind of people. Don't you think people measure success differently?
Well, it depends on what. Again, very, very simple. Like how you measure success is a massive thing. Me in my earlier career and younger kind of when I was in my 20s, I was fixated, 1 on title and 2 on income. And what did that mean? I could go and have like all the watches in the world, amazing cars, amazing like all that kind of. And I was like everything came back to. I didn't think about it as I was getting a 20 grand bonus or a 10 grand bonus or whatever it was. I was like, oh, I can go and buy a Hublot, or I can go and buy a Breitling. Yeah. Because for me, the perception of being successful then was I had to have all those things. Mm-hmm. And then when I kind of went through COVID and just before COVID and went, do you know what, I'm actually going to go and work for myself and back myself and get involved in startups. And I kind of went, okay, I'm going to sell everything I had because I didn't need it. It was kind of material, and being very materialistic generates a certain perception of the way you think and
definitely
the impact. And then stripping it all back, it makes you, like, if you're having a really shit day and you come home and you're like stressed as fuck and you're everything, and you sit there and look in your drawer as you get ready to get into bed, and you go, oh, okay, I've got 6 watches there that are worth like 50 grand. Doesn't make you happy.
No.
Doesn't make you feel good about yourself. And it became so pointless of where, like, these things that everyone chases because they think that's what success is.
Yeah.
And I can say that now from a position of having had loads of nice material possession, decided that, you know what, I don't need them in my life to be happy and feel successful.
Yeah.
I much more look at happiness comes within. And for me, it's not about what I can have, it's about what I can impact the people around me with.
Definitely.
Because I come from a very normal background.
Yeah, I was going to get into that. Like, you know, your accent's very, as some people probably think you come from, you know, middle class. You actually tell the audience where you come from.
No, so like perception is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that just because you can talk a certain way and sound a certain way, which it is what it is to a certain degree, but my background is very, very, very normal. Like, grew up in a council estate on the south coast as a kid. Parents, dad worked for the RAC 45 years. Mum was a teaching assistant at a school, and they did everything they could to give me the best start in life they could. And they made their own sacrifice at that point in time. And probably I don't, it's kind of one of those things when you sit there and you say it out loud, you think, I probably don't appreciate enough of the fact of everything they've ever done for me to get me to where I am today. Because from the vast majority of my life, I've been very much focused on what I'm doing and how I'm going.
How you're going, yeah.
And I suppose as I've got older again, coming back to you share more, and like for me, it's more about, as you look forwards, of making sure you enjoy those things that you didn't. But very, very normal background, didn't go to university, small accounting firm because I didn't want to go to work for a big firm. Didn't go to university because I couldn't really understand the benefit of it. From my own personal background, I'm very much, I wouldn't say I'm a, what's the right word, like an academic in that sense. Very much a practical person of looking at a scenario and what you can do and how it can work, rather than going to get a bit of paper that tells me I know how to do what I'm going to do.
I definitely agree. I like academia. It's you know, I've liked it since younger, but I do agree with that. Not everyone learns like that.
And it was that thing of like, when I was going through college and school, everyone was like, every teacher would be like, you should go to university. Like, you're going to ruin your life by not going to university. And you go, well, hang on a minute. So I look at myself versus a lot of my friends that I went to college and school with, and they came out of university having to go and spend the next 3 years doing the training I did when I was 18, with loads of debt, no real income. And I've already qualified, and I'm working for a FTSE 100 business in a seat, like in a central management team. And you kind of go, everything about society would tell you that was the wrong route to go, but the outcome and the reality is two separate things.
Definitely.
So yeah, very, very normal, modest background, and I've done all right. Like, and as you do, you learn to speak in a certain way to
yes, you
do. to make it so it's easier to communicate.
Yeah,
but. For me,
on a universal scale as well, so everyone understands.
Yeah, and I think that there's always a really great example of the way you almost become like a chameleon in so many senses to try and fit in that environment. Because being yourself and being a little bit rough around the edges, or not speaking entirely correct and not having the right grammar for every scenario, and
it's like you have to go through training.
You kind of have to navigate scenarios. Yeah. But what I've always found is, whether I've come across someone who is from a very modest background versus those that are from incredibly affluent, aristocratic kind of scenarios, that you can always blend. You just come back to those true versions of who you actually are. And I bet I can, like, this is a great story. It always reminds me. I got very, very lucky probably 10, 12 years ago to go along to the Lord Mayor's show in London, and you kind of go to some of the livery houses that sit behind, like, they're rooted in kind of like the 1600s of where it started to be the original tradesmen of London. And I'll never forget talking to this guy that introduced himself. To everyone else I would call him Thomas, but he introduced himself as Tahomas.
Tahomas.
And when I say,
sorry,
like, it's one of those things of where these are people. He's still the normal person, but like incredibly wealthy, incredibly successful, and to them, and being in those environments, you should stay true to who you are, because you don't need to blend in all situations.
No, 100%.
But yeah, so much.
That's how you lose yourself.
Well, you lose your identity.
You lose who you really are, and yeah. definitely.
But yeah, no.
Authenticity is so important, isn't it?
Authenticity.
So important.
Actually being what you say,
You
rather
are.
than just, okay, for us to be successful,
We
from
have
a
to,
marketing perspective, we have to do this. And I think that's the thing when you come back, like, personal brand, employer brand, like, kind of what you're trying to do, is if you're saying publicly, this is everything I am, and then you strip away your lifestyle and actually look at everything of how you actually act, the way you engage with people, what your normal life looks like. For a lot of people, they're conflicting ideologies, whereas it's a far easier position to be in if what you're doing and what you're saying are very much aligned to your own core beliefs.
Definitely.
So then you've got a much more consistent life. You don't have conflict between, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to say that, versus what I actually believe, because it's, oh no, if I say that, people are going to look at me and go, you can't say that.
Yeah. That just reminds us of that one speaking conference, Black Country Chambers, last year, and everyone was in the room. I was new to business, and everyone was like 20 years in, all these executives and whatnot, and everyone had a chance to speak, and I was like, oh God, here we go. So I've stood up, spoke, and then everyone was just like looking like, and I was thinking, oh my God, like, I know, like the accent and everything, and like, everyone just, and then one of the guys got up and goes, you're one of the most authentic women, like, person in the room. The guy that was actually he was hosting the event. He said, "You actually one of the." I was like, and then one other guy goes, "You're actually very. We believe you." Yeah. I was like, okay. I said, "Well, please do, because I'm telling the truth. There's nothing else. I've got nothing. This is it, kind of thing." They go, "This is what it is. This is why." And I actually got to interview one of the guys there. So, yeah, the power of being authentic.
It's what everything it should be. It's like the way you cut through noise and you stand out is by being true to yourself, not by I've got to be this kind of person to I've got to say this to engage with that audience. Like
the right people will.
You should gravitate towards the right kind of people around you, but it's that thing really of doing and saying what you truly believe.
Definitely,
because it's far more enjoyable to be in that scenario of I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, rather than being like I have to do this.
Yeah, it's pressure then.
Then I'm changing what I am to be in a scenario. And I think that's probably one of my biggest learns over the years is when you work in different companies and you start to realise as you get older and you get more experience that what you would do just because you're getting a nice paycheck 10 years ago versus what I would do today for the set in that environment be two completely different things. I wouldn't sit there and just take the money for the sake of it if I don't believe in what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's, whereas if you're much younger, you don't really have that ability to go, I don't need the money, I can walk away from it, and versus it being forced to stay in a position. And that's probably where the majority of the working world and that sit in most cases is usually they're forced in a position of where they're all in the same trap of they've got a mortgage to pay, they've got kids to feed, they've got everything else that most people have, and therefore for them they don't have the opportunities they'd love to really do if they didn't have that pressure.
Yeah, what they really are supposed to do, probably. Purposeful. You just being parents is purposeful. Yeah, but I think you're not just parents, are we? We're not just mothers, we're not just fathers, we're our own people. Well, we should be. Yeah, that's where you can.
You don't lose your own identity
get lost,
as well.
I was just about to say, definitely.
Because some people obsess about the fact of this is you, and then you have a child and you become a different person.
And stuff. That's
as much as like showering and supporting children as much as you can, the reality is that shouldn't become all your life is about. You don't just exist to have a child and support that child. It's about what value can you impart on
and what they can see that, and they can become something as well besides being pet. Do you know what I'm? You definitely. Would you say your background has made you passionate about what you're doing now with Raised and trying to level up?
Because I think that I've been lucky in some. Lucky is kind of one of those things. I think everyone who kind of has a certain opportunity and you get put in situations where you can make money and you can be successful, there's a certain element of luck in that because the people you meet on a certain day can dictate your future in reality. But that's all come back to kind of my own kind of look at the market, and you talk to lots of founders and different people and they all go out there trying to that race of I'm trying to find this person to share my idea with and to raise some money, and that becomes what it's all about. And then the amount of people you'll start talking to go like, oh yeah, well, I can introduce you to John over here who might back you, but if I do, for me introducing you to him, I want 10% of what you raised.
Yeah, it's
So okay, well, let's take a step back.
Very,
so you don't necessarily back and identify with what I do.
Yeah, you just want
this becomes part of a transaction.
Yeah, it's transactional. Definitely a lot of that going on. It's just, it's good to say that everyone I've helped, which I've helped a lot of people, I've got nothing out of it because I didn't want anything.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't need anything. I just wanted to try and help create something great. Yeah. Some people appreciate it, some don't, but that's none of my business. We just move forward.
Yeah.
But definitely, it's this transactional thing. I don't get it personally, but it is what it is. Everyone's different.
It kind of promotes a value of a network that doesn't really exist.
100%.
Because the reality is most of those people who they're charging to introduce you to don't know they're getting a fee for the introduction.
Exactly.
And it's a guy like, so of that 150 grand you've just given me, you do realise I'm giving 15 grand back to your mate for the introduction.
It's like money's been passed around.
And it's that thing of that's what's promoted elitism and kind of exclusivity
100%. We do it to us and we do it in our communities.
Because everyone wants to earn from a scenario
everything.
Where...
I don't get it. Yeah. Sad really though, isn't it? It is sad. Do you think it's coming from a place of... There's a theory actually called spiritual deprivation. It's from Harvard University and stuff, and it's like, it just, in modern day world, you can have the phones, you can have the cars, but that's not wealth. True wealth is spiritual, so it shouldn't be tangible. It shouldn't be tangible, like whether you've got £1 in the bank or 100, your wealth should come within, so you're always going to know and create ideas that will generate wealth. You are wealth. And I think when you've got that conditional relationship with money and assets, then you're going to become that kind of crabs in a barrel kind of thing, because it's part of your identity, don't you think? It forms like a crabs in a barrel, like, how can I say? It's status. When you're chasing status, when you're chasing something, you become kind of a slave to it, so you're willing to do anything to... Because some people don't realise, but I think some people think it's normal. I'm charging, it's normal, this is what we do, and it's not. And this is where you find your people and who you resonate with, because that's why I say some people are like that, because they believe that's the good way and that's their way, and it helps them in what they're doing. It doesn't help everybody. No,
100%. And I think that's the thing, is like coming back to that point of really like what do you actually need to be happy and and have a good life? Everyone would go, oh well, I want this, I want
money,
that, and
that,
it would focus on the physical aspects
all the time. Yeah,
not necessarily. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to have a roof over my... Everyone will be thinking about, I want a 5-bed house, detached, bit of land, or whatever it is. It becomes very much materialistic, rather than coming back to the cornerstones of, like, so many people take health for granted. And if you're not healthy, you can't have anything else.
Yeah.
And you would find so many people that as they go through their life, and they kind of originally were preoccupied about materialism, they've kind of shifted and go, if only I had more time. Time is the one leveler of everything. We all start out and go, you can't buy time. Obviously, money helps in terms of make the most use of certain bits of time and how you kind of engage and interact. But time and really truly appreciating the fact of for most people, you've got 80 years, 80, 90 years to do something. And yet everyone becomes obsessed and preoccupied about the material outcomes.
Yeah. Do you think that's why most lottery winners go broke, statistically? Because it's not the money, it's the mindset. Because everyone wants money. Oh, if I had money, I'd do this. But if you don't know how to generate money and keep money, then it doesn't really matter how much money is thrown at you. It's the mindset. We need to get that right as well before we start.
Well, it's the education piece as well.
Yeah, 100%.
If you don't know how, and it comes back to like kind of some of the problems in the schooling world and that today, is that we don't actually teach our children how to handle money and what money looks like and
that should be part of the curriculum.
Like, whereas if I go back 15 years and you look at some of the business you work with, if they were sales-based businesses, what would happen on day one of starting is you would walk in on a really low basic with an opportunity to earn loads of money in commission. Day two, what would walk in is someone from the bank going, we're going to lend you 10 grand because then what you have to do is you've got to create some urgency to generate cash to pay back the bank. So not only have you got the pressure in the natural environment of having to sell, you've now had this 10 grand, you've gone and spent it, because most younger people, when they suddenly get money they haven't had, do it, and it creates urgency, which is very much one of these sales tactics that businesses used to use like early days, of putting yourself in a vulnerable position then creates kind of urge and drive and determination.
Yes.
But so many people end up in a cycle of where they can't get out of it, and that's kind of where people are vulnerable.
Yes, definitely.
But that's so true for so many people in society, really, isn't it? Of everyone wants something, or the perception they want more, so they reach for it, and then that impacts on everything else, because life is hard. Like there's no shining star of where someone's going to give you something for nothing.
No way.
So yeah.
A little bit about AI. Are you familiar with AI and businesses? What's your perspective on how it can help or destroy? Because a lot of people are worried about it, but I think if you know how to use it, I think it's great.
It's an enabler, isn't it?
Yeah,
well, it should be an enabler.
That's it.
But it will all come back to education.
Definitely.
And making sure those at the earlier points of their career and from all backgrounds have actually the right educational tools and understanding what it is, and see it as an opportunity rather than a risk. But AI in its simplest form should allow most people to be far more productive than what they would be. But I think one of the interesting conversations I've had recently with a HR tech platform looking to try and raise some investment was, here's an AI tool that basically can go, this is your CV, this is a job description. The AI tool will rewrite your CV so on paper you appear a better fit for that job. So you'll get trying with the view of trying to get through more of the application process.
Yeah.
Which then creates a different problem of how do you then segregate 100 different CVs that on paper, now because they're written by AI, look identical, and the inequality that then promotes because, what? Okay. And then when you actually meet people, you go for the interview and you go like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. But and that's kind of maybe where there's more some negative use of AI, because it is that thing of it should be an opportunity to give people the same tools. It doesn't then suddenly make you completely different to everyone else, but it's a great tool to help and support people.
Definitely, I agree. I think, like I said, with most things in life, it's how we use it as humans and how we use it to benefit us instead of destroying. The future of Raised, tell the audience just a bit. I don't want too much because obviously it's going to kick off in 2025, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for all startups, or new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs anyway,
anyone wanting to get into the position of starting their own business or has their own business and wants to raise capital to grow and scale it, what we really look at is trying to give everyone access to the same opportunities of investor. So you don't have to go through all these private networks and all these kind of things. It's really to make it really simple. So one, we help you and support you in terms of, if you're a first time founder, what should you really know about business? Let's forget fundraising for a minute. It comes back to what should you know about starting a business? What's VAT? What's GDPR? How do you build a brand? What does a brand look like? How do you hire people? That's very much the core. Like so many products in the early stage world focus on, I'm getting you here and I'm putting you in front of an investor without actually doing anything first. So fundamental principle of what we're offering is free, like a free educational product that will always be free, because kind of paramount belief. What we do is we then help you to create your models in a way that is really, really simple and explainable to an investor, so you don't sit there and can't articulate or explain what you're doing. And then we kind of take all that information, we make it blind, so all an investor sees the prospect with, this is what the business idea is, these are the potential returns, and that's that, with a simple logic of, do you want to meet? Because we saw in the recruitment world, unconscious bias really had a massive impact on the profiling and screening of candidates, and we're trying to use that same approach in the early stage investment world. But yeah, so we're currently fundraising ourselves to get our initial launch capital, with a view that we'll launch in January, February of the next year. But up until that point, I've got 3 other people that are on the journey, or 3 or 4 people that are on the journey, and it's very much self-funded, bootstrapped, and we'll get there. But yeah, it's really about how can we give everyone that same element of equity at the early stage decision-making process.
Amazing. Where can we find you, Scott? If anyone wants to get in contact with you.
LinkedIn, our website is up, which is goraise.com.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn's the best approach, and you'll probably find my phone number everywhere online as well anyway. So
thank you, Scott, for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Massive pleasure.
Bye, guys.